You're listening to Wanna Coffee with Kai Alicia.
And Adriana.
Talking
Random.
sensible
Shit.
We're taping this late at night because couldn't get a hold of Adriana when we normally tape and didn't know what to do. So, Adriana, if you when you hear this, I hope you're doing okay. But I've decided to do a special show. I'm here today with my husband, producer of the show, Bear Tiger Productions, obviously producing this show, Want a Coffee, and his name is Kirk. And today, Kirk, why don't you introduce yourself?
Let's get ready to rumble!
Yeah, so yeah.
I think today, hi everyone, today we're talking about apparently sports and men in sports and what the roles sports have in the male life.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, so we're talking about the role of sports in grown adult men's lives.
As opposed to not grown.
Correct.
adult men.
Correct.
Half-grown men,
There
male
you
lives.
go. Grown adult men. Because there are adults out there who don't act grown.
So we're discarding them.
We're not discarding people who are short, baby. That's not where I'm getting at. I'm talking about,
No, I'm not talking about, like, in the mind.
yes,
Yeah.
grown adult men. Men who have it together. Men who are men,
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Men. Mm-hmm. So, I've always had a take on this because obviously in America, sports are, well, pretty much in every country, sports are really, really big. But particularly in America, you have football, baseball, and basketball, which basically dominate at least 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Like, dominate. And the Super Bowl is basically as big as Christmas when it comes around. And, and then you've got things like fantasy football and, you guys get together, or they get together and talk about like draft picks for the NFL, or, it's just it's crazy. I think it's absolutely crazy. And I just think it's too much. And I think I have this theory, and maybe I'll say this theory later. Later.
I know the theory.
You do?
Yeah, I know the theory.
Well, I'll share it with you all later. I'd love to hear what my husband has to say about the role of sports in his life. Considering, of course, you're...
Yeah, well, look, sports for, I think a lot of males in the world plays a significant part in their life, depending on what sport it is and what sort of physical activity it is. But yeah, like there is that phenomenon of the male who has a wife and kids, and his sort of hobby is intense pastime is focusing on a team or several teams in some people's cases, some guys' cases, and being fanatical about it and just like being obsessed and living vicariously through their team. So, I've even myself, I've never been into organized sports until recently. the last 2 years, I've followed a sport. I've never really followed a team or anything, and I've followed a team in the NBA, the 76ers. And
woohoo! Shout out to Ben Simmons.
Shout out to Ben Simmons. Hope that knee rehab is going well. I hope that speedy recovery, man. Love me a bit of B Sims. So I've been following them mainly because of the Australian connection. So, honestly, only because of the Australian connection, because I followed Ben Simmons and found out about him and what he was doing, and then...
But, of course, Brett Brown.
And
Brett Brown's American, so...
With an Australian wife.
Right.
And Australian kids.
Right.
So, he coached Australia before and yada yada. So, and there was another Australian player on the team too, 2 years ago. And so there was this whole big Australian connection thing going on with the 76ers. So I got involved with them and as in just started following them, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed following them and sort of taking interest in them.
You liked it so much. Your whole day would be shitty if they lose. I'd come in, I'd be like, hey babe, how's it going? And you'd say, yeah, 76ers didn't win. And the whole day is ruined.
Really?
You're in a bad mood, or you need to explain to me why
I'd be in a bad mood.
they didn't win, and what they could have done better, and who needed to get who on the team, and who actually makes the decisions on the team, and who needs to be let go. And it was as if you had a share.
A share, yeah. Totally get it. But it didn't ruin my day. It didn't make me in a bad mood or anything.
There have been many times before bed, for example, that I'll just catch you watching interviews of past games, where you're just hearing what Brett Brown had to say, or what some dude had to say about the game you just lost, and it's like, oh, okay, but it didn't ruin your day. Okay.
No, I just wanted more insight into what was going on and where their headspace is at, and so I was just interested. I like Brett Brown. I was always interested in see what he had to say about different cases.
Why do you like Brett Brown so much? Because he's Australian? I mean,
he's not Australian.
He's got the Australian affiliation.
Oh, just because he's acts. He just talks he doesn't talk much like a coach. He talks like a dad all the time, whereas other coaches will talk like a coach. And I wanted to hear what the dad's going to say about the game this time. And it's like a dad talking about his kids, and I found it endearing, I guess. So yeah, I just said there's a likability factor, even though he's been axed, which I support. Actually, I think it's probably a good decision, but he's no longer the 76ers coach. But yeah, so look, sports plays a big role in a lot of guys. I'm not on it. You spoke about fantasy draft and everything. I can't get into that. People have asked me to have a fantasy team, play fantasy basketball, play fantasy football, all that stuff, and I'm like, I can't be bothered. I don't want to get into that.
But it's this is interesting to me because it's only within the last 2 years of your life that you've gotten into basketball in such a big way, and it
at all.
Yeah, right. At all. Okay.
Yeah,
and it taking precedence in your life and in a big way. I mean,
precedence over what?
Well, I mean, we were for our honeymoon. We were thinking about just touring Philadelphia, and going to a 76ers game or going to a Celtics game and clocking in there. You know what I mean? So, I'm curious as to why the past 2 years of your life, is it such a pastime? Is it such an important pastime, I would say? I've never seen you like this before. And you're right. It has been in these past 2 years. What could it be?
I'm not sure what could it be. I'm pretty sure you've got a good idea of what it could be.
It sounds like you know what it could be.
No, the way the little smirk on your face seems you're
well, I'm only deducing based on the fact that you said it was, within the past 2 years that you kind of got really into national sports like this, and I don't know, we just got married.
It sounds like
about a year and a half ago. So
you're saying men need a distraction from women?
I do. It sounds like men need a distraction from the home life, because it may just be too stressful. It may just be too many, the hen, chicken,
so they need their own thing, and the sport is their own thing that the woman can't even get into. It's like theirs. It's their world.
Well,
they have control over it.
Well, I was pretty into, as soon as you kind of got onto it. Like, I love sports, but I've never been sort of that. I've never had like a team where I was like, yes, so committed. I maybe was just like, into particular athletes just because they were hot, you know what I mean? But like outside of that, I've watched sports and been to, watched games, and been to sporting events and really enjoyed myself, but never really got hooked on them. And I think because of your interest, I became super interested and super invested in what was happening, and enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. But I've never crossed that threshold of watching interviews, just before bed to hear the latest, or just to hear, not even the latest, to hear reruns of what you
haven't really lived
missed
yet, then obviously.
I guess.
You've got
reruns. We're talking reruns of like stuff that happened days ago. You before bed. And it's amazing. Or I'll, you'll come back from work, long day of work, and instead of chatting to me, I'll see you watching clips of commentators talk about the game.
If I'm going to do something, I do it well. So I followed the 76ers, and from nothing to everything, I knew the organization, the front office, back office, everything. I knew the whole thing, the draft picks, everything, the reserves. I knew the whole lot. So I really immersed myself in that world. And it was a fun dive. I think I'm out of it now.
Are you out of it because Brett Brown's left? And because Simmons is out?
A lot of the players I liked. I also liked the 76ers because they were sort of like...
The 76ers? Aren't you talking about the 76ers?
Yeah, but I was just saying...
Another reason.
Another reason why I liked the 76ers was because it was an Australian and very European team. And I was sort of like... I just liked the sort of roster they had together. And they've slowly like gotten rid of that roster over the years. We're now like there's only like 3 players left of that same roster that I initially liked. So that team's sort of like gone now. And to tell the truth, as much as I like Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons individually, I don't enjoy watching them play together. So they're not that fun, and the pieces they have around them on their roster at the moment are very boring, and they play very boring basketball now, and they're not fun to watch. So unless they make some really cool trades in the off season, I think I'm sort of off the basketball. I've had that, and
I mean, just going back to my original question, you're not alone, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm not trying to pin you down and say, listen, you watch too much television or too much of this, you're too invested in this stuff. I think it's kind of, I think it's kind of cute. I get along. I mean, I get into it. Let me just say that. But I think, one of my fears growing up was that I would be with a man who was like, would, watch football every Sunday, and he'd sit in front of the television and he'd be like, babe, where are the chicken wings? Get the chicken wings with the Buffalo Ranch.
You got Coors Light or what?
Yeah, exactly. And so when when I knew you were an athlete, when I met you, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, but you seem to have more of, I don't know, an interest in various other things outside of sports. So I guess I'm curious as to why did it come along now? Like what is this, and why do you get so?
I literally think it's because there was Australian athletes on the one NBA team, which I've never really happened. There've been so few Australian NBA players, and there were two Australians on the same team with an Australian coach in the NBA, and it's like intriguing. And then they had Joel Embiid, an African, and then they had a Turkish dude, and then they had a guy from Serbia or Croatia, and it was like really interesting mix. They used to sort of call the team when I first started like the United Nations team, and that was interesting to me. Like that sort of got me in.
Okay.
But lately, my focus, I'm not watching 76ers stuff all the time. I'm watching news stuff all the time. I'm watching a lot of PBS NewsHour. I'm watching a lot of political commentary. I'm watching different sort of things.
So you're saying that this is unique for you. So you're essentially saying that you watching sports is a very unique thing.
Yeah, it was like out of the ordinary. So
you're not status quo. You're not the typical man. You're not the average man.
I'm a man, so I'll have manly tendencies where I enjoy watching sport and get into it, but I've never really gotten into sport or cared to get into it and keep getting into it long enough. Like the only sporting things I would get into and watch over my life would be the Football World Cup. So I'd follow Australia and watch the Football World Cup, and sometimes the Rugby World Cup. So they're things that happen like every 4 years. So, and then outside of that, I'll follow some tennis tournaments and watch a little bit of tennis tournaments and just the Grand Slams normally. So I don't follow them that intensely. I just watch matches that interest me.
Okay.
So
as a man, what do you think the reason is that men are so hung up on sports?
I think there's a lot of reasons. I think there's reasons that there's sort of like there's some stereotypes which are sort of true, some sort of sayings of like men think of athletes as the pinnacle, and most men think of themselves as failed athletes because all guys played sport at school. Like most guys played sport at school.
And you're an athlete.
Yeah, I'm an athlete. So, and they played some type of sport at school or university, and they were at whatever level they were at, various levels, and so they like to. They all have a dream of like, oh, I wish I could be Michael Jordan. I wish I could be Pele. Messi. I wish I could be Ronaldo. And so they live their dreams through other players and other teams. And that's their like fantasy of like, if I was there, I'd be doing that. So I feel like that's a big part of it for a lot of men. They're like, I was a great football player. I could have played. I wish I continued and tried with my football more. And they watch sport for that reason. I also believe it is a break from the real world. It's like an imaginary world. They get just a break from like their life. So it's like virtual reality. It's like someone who's like, why do you do virtual reality and put on the goggles and do virtual reality? I think it's escapism. That's the word. So it's escapism for a lot of guys as well. So that'd be the two reasons I think I can come up with.
Fair enough. That's an interesting take. Those are both really interesting takes. One I never considered, which was, most men are, athletic or have played sports in the past and have seen themselves as athletes, have failed as being an athlete or just really enjoyed the sport and wished that they could do it. But yeah, I definitely, I guess, had this theory that it's all a distraction. It's all a distraction meant to take men away from the house, have them relax, not to stress out as much, and keep them kind of dumb.
Yeah, cool. And then there's there's a third. Well, then there's another thing of like overall society of like sport now is like, and the way it's sold and the way it's televised is just like any other media is to dumb down the population. Is just forget sport, just
Correct.
TV.
Yes.
And sports on TV.
Exactly.
So it's all just to pacify the population and just get you to be happy with working, go to work, shut up, go to sleep, pay tax, die, you're okay, shut up, don't do anything, be quiet.
Get fat.
Yeah.
Eat a bunch of hot dogs.
Correct. So it's part of it. I don't feel like that is sport. I feel like that's just entertainment, because sport is entertainment now. So that's just entertainment in general. It could be anything. That's the block. It's any crap that's on TV.
Interesting. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
It's been fantastic.
All right. Thanks for listening. We want to know what you think.
Send us your comments and follow us on Twitter and Facebook
at #WannaCoffeePod.